Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, North Motor City Man Mouth. Pleased to have you with us tonight. Had a great show to lead it off tonight when we had Dom Amore from the Hartford Courier Current on the show. Talked about Connecticut sports, talked about Yale, as well as the UConn men's basketball and women's basketball, as well as football, among other New England sports. Glad to have my crew on tonight. Trent Clark is on assignment out in Colorado taking care of business. No problem. Candy Ebling is filling in. Mark Meriday joins us on Thursday. Let's talk about some of the topics. You can see the title. Can you see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in pinstripes? I'm sure Eric's salivating to get his teeth on that one. And talking about that, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Twins, Boston Red Sox. Candy and I had an opportunity to go out to Fort Myers, had a productive day there. Tampa Bay Rays, of course. Then we're going to also talk about the Milwaukee Brewers, Pat Murphy, Tim McCarver as well. So we'll have an opportunity to touch a lot of different things today. With that said, let me introduce the crew. Candy, I'm glad to have you on.
Thanks. It's good to be here, Scott. Talking baseball.
That's it. And we want to go ahead and welcome Eric Katz.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're very welcome, Eric. And I have a great connection who I'm going to connect you with out in Tampa. I've actually been in contact with him earlier today, but I'll be reaching out to him a little bit more in the coming weeks. And let me tell you, I'll line this guy up for you. Hey, Eddie, brother. Glad to have you on. And, of course, last but not least, George Icorn. Glad to have you on, George.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
All right, well, let's get at it. And a little bit later start today, but we had that first show, and we wanted to make sure that we had the interview of Pablo Lopez. We're going to be talking about him tonight, a guy that I worked with when he was at the Miami Marlins. It started off with Vladimir Guerrero. We'll consider the Yankees in free agency. He says his issues are in the past. And so might as well start off with our resident Yankee guy, Mr. Katz.
Yeah, I know that Vlad Jr. is going to be a free agent. I mean, okay, let's be honest. When players are young, they're just happy to be in the show, and they're really loyal to their team, particularly when they're going up against the rival team and what have you. But I don't really look too much into that because players change, they grow, they learn. And, so I really don't, but I don't see the Yankees going after him given his asking price. I mean, that's a lot of money to be paying a first baseman. I mean, the first base hasn't had that tremendous of a talent since, the days of Prince Fielder and Albert Pujols. But, I think that there are just, first base is the type of position where anybody can literally stand there and catch the ball. I mean, he's not like that all-around great talent that people were making him out to be after he nearly won MVP in 2021. But I don't see the Yankees doing it. They have Ben Rice hanging out there, and right now, they have Ben Rice hanging there, and I think too that there would be there are just cheaper bats also available. And I think that I just don't see the Yankees wanting to dump all that money into a first baseman. Because to be honest, Vlad is just not a generational talent like a Prince Fielder or like an Albert Pujols that could say that you would just dump all that money to.
Candy?
Wow. We're talking big money. And really, is Vlad worth that big of money? There's about $50 million between him and what Toronto's offering him that they're trying to figure out. The four-time All-Stars reported ask would have given him the second largest pact in MLB history behind only the non-deferred $765 million the New York Mets gave Juan Soto during the offseason. Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers before last season has a present value of $460 million because of all the record deferrals. So is Guerrero worth that? Honestly, no. Is one player worth that? No. Be honest with you, I don't think Juan Soto is worth that. Shohei, yes, because he's multidimensional. But at this rate, the local fan will not be able to afford baseball tickets because the price of the tickets is going to be so high in order to pay all of these high salaries that it's at some point you're going to price out most of your blue collar working, especially families. So that's my take, George.
Well, let's go to the chat room before we'll give George a little time to respond. Eddie Prater, they need to get a second great bat. I agree. Right now, it's Aaron Judge without protection. That's
Not true.
Point too.
Not true.
He says that Eric doesn't agree, but that's what he has to say. What's up, guys? With Pensman, I love that one, Eddie. Everybody's entitled to agree with each other, and of course, Pensman, I don't want to see him in pinstripes. With that said, we'll turn over to George.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking stratosphere money here, 500 million, 600 million, possibly a 14-year deal from the Blue Jays. I don't think, if I were Toronto, I would not re-sign him, because obviously we see from the track record of several years now, okay, where do you see Toronto in the postseason? I'm still looking for him. All I'm saying is that, if you're not going to surround him with great pitching, other great hitters, and make it a compliment, you shouldn't give him that money. So if the Blue Jays are still intent on keeping him, which I have my doubts they are, but it looks like on the surface they might be. But the fact of the matter is, and going back to your original question is, are the Yankees going to go after him? And I tend to side with you, Eric. I don't think so. I mean, there's so many big players on that team right now, in that lineup right now. The old saying, the sky's the limit. Well, one of these days there will be a limit for teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Bo Sox. I don't see him going to a small market like Milwaukee, Detroit, Cincinnati, anything like that. Cleveland, I mean, they're not going to be able to afford him. So then you're back into the rotation of teams like LA, San Diego, Philadelphia, and those teams. But he's a good, very good player. He's very good. But the fact of the matter is, for him to cash out now, cashing in his chips, which by his rights, he deserves to try. But I tell you what, I don't know where he's going to end up right now. I really don't. And I agree with you, Eric. I don't think it's going to be the Yankees.
Well, here's what we have.
Well,
Number one, Eric makes a good point. Ben Rice is waiting in the wings. You want to see what you have there. Number two, you're comparing George Steinbrenner versus Hal Steinbrenner. And Giancarlo Stanton's the only thing you have to wonder about is what will happen with his long-term injury situation. I know he's short-term, so there are variables that you can look at on both sides. But in the end, Hal Steinbrenner would rather go with a younger player with the upside. And, of course, you have Aaron Judge. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's intriguing. I think that Vladimir Guerrero, when Toronto threw the money at him, should have taken the offer, because George is really leading to what we all think, that there will be the inevitability of a salary cap in Major League Baseball. I really think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and we'll see whether MLB's union, which is stronger than anyone on the universe, may ultimately break it, because this next first stoppage, as I'm hearing, could potentially get ugly.
Well, here's the deal. As far as I don't think the Aaron Judge's situation in the lineup is as bad as people are making it out to be. Plus, I'm not really big on spring training performances, because I've seen plenty of guys slap it all over Hill and Dale down in Florida, and next thing you know, they go to the regular season and it just doesn't happen for them, save for like maybe a month or two. But I think it's I think that I think we're really underestimating Cody Bellinger here. He's got a perfect swing for Yankee Stadium. I mean, yeah, I'm not big on big on spring training statistics, but he's had a fantastic spring and has looked great out there. And he's a lefty, so he's got the short porch to work with. So, and also, at least with Paul Goldschmidt, they don't need him to be a star. They just need him to be a competent player. If he can be so along that line, the Yanks will be fine. And I know that the Yanks have said that Giancarlo Stanton's starting to do a little bit. How much he's doing, it remains to be seen. But it's just not a it's just go. I think at this point they've got an optimistic timeline of Memorial Day for him to return. Which, hey, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing at all. Where you keep on saying he's going to be back, and next thing you know, it's August and he's still not back yet. But yeah, I mean, as far as Dominguez goes, I think Dominguez is going to be fine. He's learning a new position, guys, It's hard. I'm not sure if I'd probably say about 90% of people who listen to talk shows and go on social media have no idea. Actually, I'd probably say 95% have no idea just how hard it really is. I mean, that's why we call them couch quarterbacks. But I think, at this point, is the Yankees offense going to be as good as it was last year? No, but their defense is significantly better. And I think that the Yankees won't have to score as many runs as they did last year because their defense is better and their pitching is better despite not having Garrett Cole, which people forget. People said, oh, the Yankees have no ace. Well, Max Fried's at the top. He's been doing that for quite a while in Atlanta. But, apparently people forgot how to read, which happens more often than not. And I think that it's going to be, I think the Yankees are going to be fine. They're still a playoff team. I meare they necessarily the runaway favorite in the American League? No, because now that egg is wide open. But overall though, I think the Yankees are going to be fine.
All right, let's transition to our next topic. Candy and I certainly had an opportunity to cover spring training over the weekend. What was interesting is we were planning to go to Sebring. That situation never worked out, but sometimes your plan B is better than your actual plan A turned out to be. And we want to thank the Minnesota Twins for hosting us over at spring training at Hammond Stadium in Fort Myers. What an incredible time. I can't thank Nina Zimmerman and Dustin Morse, the guy, and had a great time there. So with that said, the tape we're going to put in there now, and hope everybody can stay with us on this one, is about Pablo Lopez' fresh start in Minnesota. I had a good opportunity to go out there and work with Pablo before. The reunion was great. The hospitality was incredible by the Twins. I'm looking forward to building a long-term relationship with the Minnesota Twins, and boy, they certainly put their foot on the gas and did an unbelievable thing. Unfortunately, the night before, we went over to Fort Myers Beach, and the damage of the hurricane was unbelievable. But it's sad when you drive by it, but we did it nonetheless. But when we got to baseball business yesterday, it was great. I had clubhouse access, and it was a tremendous experience. Pablo Lopez. Candy, let's go to the clip. And just so you know, Yankees Jazz, if you missed the beginning of the show because we let off with a Yankee topic, you could always go back over it and watch it again on the YouTube channel as well, because that's why we make sure these things are on the channel in case you get a little bit home from baseball. I know that's what you generally do as well, so that's for sure. So, and Pensman said hit the like and subscribe button to the channel, and also Pensman has a good channel as well. So any of those, you have opportunity to hit Pensman Sports. He's on here, but Pensman stuff is also on our channel as well, so you'll be able to get the best of both worlds. So let's go to the tape. Yankees Jazz, we're glad to have you back in here as you do every Monday night. God bless. We enjoy the loyal people for sure. All right, Candy, go to the tape.
So can I preface just one thing? So
go ahead.
This interview that they're doing, that all of them are talking, they're talking to Pablo after he came out of the game yesterday. And just so everybody is aware, he probably only has one more start before the major league season starts. So one more start yet in spring training, just so you preface that.
And let me also add that he had 8 strikeouts versus 1 walk in the game against the Boston Red Sox. Alex Bregman went 0 for 3 in this game. He gave up 2 home runs, but Pablo Lopez is a stud, an inning leader. And now you can go to the tape, Candy. Thank you.
How much do you treat this one as kind of as close to a regular season? I mean, you went 6 innings and 80-some pitches. How close did it feel to a normal game for you?
I loved it. Yeah, it's good. I mean, every time you go 6 innings, especially when you don't do the whole thing, when they take you out and put you back in, so that was a very good positive. And no, this is probably like the closest thing to a regular season game. You talk about the workload, the amount of pitches. I'm really happy with like the sequencing, the pitch velo, the shapes, the strikeouts, everything was there. And obviously there are some things that I still can refine, get a little better at, but I've taken the feedback from every star and like made some adjustment, or give me a goal, give me a process-oriented goal. No, and I'm just really happy with how today, when Vasquez had such a good feel for calling the game as if it was a regular season game. It's not like, okay, let's wanna emphasize on 0-2 something. It's just like whatever the game told us, whatever the situation told us, we went for it. So it felt really game-like, and then I'm really satisfied with that, especially with just one more to go and then the actual season. So it's all about competing. That's how it felt today.
Is that a little more fun than earlier in the spring when you're attacking it like a competition as opposed to like a preparation?
Yeah, no, 100%. Every time you make it more like regular season like, or you make it more competition like, that's what you want. So I think like my mentality was there all along today. It wasn't more like, oh, like let's pick a spot to work on something. It's like if I'm gonna work on something, I'm gonna work on executing. I'm gonna work on putting people away. I'm gonna work on throwing really good 0-2, 1-2 count pitches, and there were still some counts that I could have made a better pitch, but it's a huge day from the last one where like I got hurt a lot with 2 strikes, and today my execution with 2 strikes was a lot better with a lot of different pitches.
Pablo, as I saw you do so many times in Miami, when you start piling up strikeouts, it looks like you're starting to find your groove a little. Did you start finding that a little bit now today?
Yeah, no, 100%. So my last spring training start, my issue came with I was too much in the zone or too close to the zone with 2 strikes, and today was like, okay, let's take a time, let's take a deep breath and be very specific with the 2 strike counts with any pitch with those 2 strike counts. They always have a specific place to go, and like how can we make it aggressive, how can we make it like turn, keep on going, fade with good quality arm action. So it was a good groove to find with the 2 strike counts today.
How is life treating you here in Minnesota? You're playing for a team with a much more winning culture. You're playing in front of a lot more people. Do you really enjoy the fresh start that you've had up in the Twin Cities?
I love it. No, I mean, the last 2 seasons have been nothing short of a blessing. Very fortunate to be part of the Minnesota Twins organization, and it felt like the baseball home I always needed and wanted. So just blessed to be here, and I've seen a lot of people take strides to add to the philosophy we're trying to build.
The Cardinals announced their opening day starter today. Obviously exciting day already, but like the prospect of getting to face Sunny, is that something you're looking forward to?
It's fun. Every time you pitch against a former teammate, and I've done it when I pitched against Miami last year, it's a fun challenge, and you make it a fun little competition. I mean, I know Sonny's a competitor. His mindset's going to be like, I'm going to get people out, I'm going to prevent runs. That's going to be my mentality too, but it's always fun when you're challenging yourself against a former teammate. We did it last year in August, and it was a fun little competition. So, really happy and excited. Looking forward to match up with Sonny Gray on March 27th.
I have to ask you, how do you like playing in the cold weather from time to time?
You know what? It's different. It's not as fun as pitching in this warmth. I'd rather pitch when it's 90 and muggy than 30 and cold. But you got to do what you got to do, and it's only for a few starts. But we make adjustments. We can't control that. So the best solution I've come to find is having quick innings. So if the inning starts getting long, you start getting in trouble. But it's different, but that's how baseball is. It's challenging, keeps you on your toes, it keeps you adjusting, and you gotta do your job regardless.
Great stuff, great seeing you.
How tough is it to see Royce go out with the injury?
I was sad. I wasn't there when it happened. I was in the tunnel refreshing because I was sweating a lot today. And then I come out to the dugout and I see Rocco and the trainer with him. So really sad. I haven't gotten to talk to him. It's always hard to approach someone after something like that happens. You don't know. I'm sure he's feeling very down on himself, but he's also very optimistic. So I hope that he's got some optimism to him. Whatever imaging they're gonna get, whether it's today or tomorrow, just hoping and wishing the best for him. He's such a good player and a much more important clubhouse presence for us. Thank you.
Pablo.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's a guy that gets it when it comes to pitching, Pablo Lopez is it. I saw this guy pitch in Miami for an indigent team, and when they were competitive, this guy to me can go out there and pitch in any era. I don't care. I'll put him in the same sentence as a Mickey Lolich or a lot of these guys that used to go out there and eat a lot of innings. This guy is unbelievable. And when I saw him for the first time, because he was pitching, you can't get interviews before a guy's pitching, but the PR guy assured me, don't worry, you can do it after the game. And this PR guy, Dustin Morse, I'll tell you, didn't he make me feel pretty good out there?
He did.
I mean, you talk about bringing me out there to talk to a trainer, and I've seen some PR guys in my days. Some of them are good, some of them are tough. Dustin gets it. He put me in a position to win, whereas Eric will know that. When you're out there doing what you got to do, it's all, then you're having fun. And I have fun the majority of the time doing it. But I felt like my time in Fort Myers was like being at Halloween. It really felt it was that good. How much candy can I eat one day? Of course, I have my beloved here on the show, so that's a good thing too. But still, I'm talking about in a work environmental place. Pablo Lopez is a real deal. This guy could pitch in any era. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the comments that will turn around. Thank you, Scott, for Saturday. I appreciate it, sir. I saw what and had what you said.
Heard what you
was
said.
on Saturday. Well, we were all talking about for Pezman's a very important part of what we do here. He really is. Not only does he share the content, but he's always there when every time we need him to fill in on a show. You can't have enough versatile performers on this network, and Pezman to me, I've known him for a while, and he's a very important part of the show as everybody is. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. So let's get back to. Go ahead, Candy.
Well, I was going to comment on Brian. I mean, that especially in spring training, that's what you do is you analyze as you're going through spring training to get better and better to get you up to for the regular season. So yeah, that's what Pablo did, and it's great to see someone talk about it and give you very candid answers. And Yankees Jazz, who's the best spring breakout player right now? I think that's hard to say because I think so many of them are honing in on their crafts right now. And at least that's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe other people on this panel have a difference of opinion, but.
Well, maybe Mr. Paul Tuckett does.
Yeah.
He knows a lot. He knows about the Paul Tuckett Red Sox team, Eric. Who do you think's the best breakout player?
I haven't really seen them all yet, but I've seen in Yankee camp when George Lombard Jr. had a shot there. He looked like an absolute stud. I think Spencer Jones just needs to cut. He's got power. He just got to cut down on them strikeouts.
That's fair enough. Still more of it to be had. So in this particular environment, we'll have more and more videos coming out as well. I had a great opportunity to interview Ryan Jeffers, the catcher for the Twins, as well as Audra Martin, the reporter, and there was a trainer that also talked about my hat. So there'll be more coming on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, you haven't subscribed, please do so and hit the red subscribe button. But the Twins are fantastic, and I'm looking forward to covering them more in spring training, hopefully getting up there to Minneapolis. But you talk about a situation where we're going to go to Sebring it, and as it turns out, it didn't work out. This was an unbelievable experience, and I look forward to working with the Twins. Unbelievable. And what's even better about it, George and I can relate to this story, is when I mentioned the Calvin Griffith story to a lot of them. Many of them weren't old enough to understand Calvin Griffith other than the history that he was an owner, about how I had money. I was ripped off outside of Tiger Stadium, got money from my Uncle Gene Rice, and God love him, rest in peace, Uncle Gene, and sat next to Calvin Griffith. And between Nina and Dustin, they were nice enough to listen to the story and got a kick out of the whole thing. Then I memorized everything that I ended up from that story and turned it into a story, and now it ended up in my book. Talk about
it was a good story. It was a great interview you did. I remember with Calvin Griffith, and I know how proud you are of that, Scott. That was one of your best writing that you contributed to my Detroit Monitor also.
Yeah, and he sent you a note and invited me to come to a game anytime I want. Never worked out to get out there, but what an incredible experience it was. So anyways, let's get back to the topic at hand. Eric, what are your thoughts about Pablo Lopez?
Well, the Twins are going to be relying on him this year. They need him to kind of bounce back a little bit from last year because he was had a 4-something ERA last year. But him and Bailey Ober are going to have to really toe it down for the Twins because they're looking to rebound after they completely collapsed in September last year. So they're going to be relying on him to go back to being the all-star caliber Pablo Lopez.
George?
Well, you know what? He's one of those guys. I mean, you look at his stats right now down in the spring training, and they're not all so good. But again, like Candy has mentioned before, too, you can't just look at one outing. You can't just look at one body of work, meaning one game or 2 games in a row or something. These guys got a lot of things they're working on. Spring training is more of that than anything else. And like I said, when you take one look at his stats, and I know, Eric, you mentioned about last year, yeah, it wasn't a great year for him. In fact, the Twins faded. We know that, and the Tigers snuck in. But the fact of the matter is Pablo's got a great arsenal. And Scott, you saw him many years with Miami. Of course, they're depending on him. I mean, he's one of those, just like the Tigers are depending on Flaherty again. Can he work his magic in Detroit a second straight year? But I mean, all these guys, especially the starters, there's so much pressure on them. They really do need to perform well. and he's got a good head on his shoulders. That was a good interview. I was
Yeah.
glad to see he wasn't down and out and saying, "Oh shoot, I just gave up 4 runs in spring training." No. So there's things all those guys are working on something, but yeah, I think he's got a bright future. Minnesota's got a good shot this year in that Central Division.
Well, think about it for a second. Jack Morris started working on his split finger fastball out in spring training with Roger Craig. And the thing I know about, and I'll tell you another thing that's classy about the PR guy, Dustin. When I told him I needed to interview the catcher and he was going to get me a catcher, hey, and this guy is so shrewd, this communication guy, Dustin, is this. I said, I can't really do it here in the clubhouse. Can we at least do it outside because the copyright issues of YouTube? And he said, yeah, I've had those problems before. I'll get it worked out for you. And we did. He took him right outside, so Katie didn't have to banter about all this stuff. Because these are some of the things behind the scenes that we have to deal with, especially her, of getting them out with avoiding any noise that you can. But Pablo Lopez is a stud. I mean, I mentioned Mickey Loach based on the Tigers situation, but if you sat there and looked at all the different players throughout the years that compile complete games, look no further than Bert Blyleven of the Twins. And here's another guy that ate up a lot of innings. So Pablo Lopez is a stud. He's going to do fine. It's not easy pitching up in Minnesota where it's a lot colder. Kenny, you want to close it out?
So one of the things that when I was listening to that interview that really rang through to me is he said he kind of finally found his way home. Like he thinks the Twins is home in front of the crowds that, Minnesota has, the backing that he has, the support system that he has. And I'm not knocking Miami, but Miami doesn't draw. Minnesota draws more. And even in the cold weather. And I thought it was interesting how he talked how he changes his approach a little bit during the cold weather games. But he's just an all-around nice guy. And I think George, like you said, he wasn't down on himself because he had given up how many runs in spring. I mean, this is spring training. This is when you're trying to hone your pitches. This is where you're trying to get used to the new system, the strike system, where they can
challenge,
go to challenges and stuff like that. So this is all new to them as well. So I think as much as he may have struggled with certain pitches, and that's why there was a couple of home runs hit off him, you're going to get that in a regular game though too. But it's also, what are all your other pitches like? What is your defense behind you? And how well are you with the catcher? Because you and the catcher play a game, and it's you, the two of you have to kind of like make music together, because the catcher's got to know who the batter is, what are their strengths. So what pitches do they hit? What pitches do they struggle with? What pitches does the pitcher are their strengths? And I think we as some that are common fans don't realize all the mentalness that goes into being a pitcher and a catcher and the relationship that brings. Because if you'll see that, if you notice all the great pitchers or the number one pitchers, they have one catcher that they only really work with.
Well, let me tell you this. Let's preface this whole thing. I can't wait till Ryan Jeffries comes out. Because when I talked to Dustin about that interview, and I said, I want to do this, and he said, no, Ryan's great about the whole thing. Then he said he wants to talk to you about catching. And right off the bat, me being a former catcher in Little League, and I'm talking to Ryan Jeffries, that was an automatic connection waiting to happen. And even Candy will tell you the look on the PR guy says, Dustin says, wow, he's slamming these questions one right after another. And you can't sit here and tell me based on Dustin's body language, this guy didn't learn a thing or two, because we had that much fun talking about it because it was a natural connection. We could sit here and go on about the battery made. We had Mickey Lola, Bill Freehan, Mark Bidrich, and Bruce Kim.
Yeah, and Tarek Skubal with Rogers.
Right,
Rogers.
we could go into that all day long, and we're not going to get into it because we only have so much show to work with. But that's the thing about catching. It's an art that I even joked around with my brother. He said, well, it was the only position you can play. It's the only position I wanted to play, because the other ones were boring. That's how I told my brother last week, and Candy was kind of laughing. He says, I was a pitcher. So, yeah, you need guys like me to frame pitches to make you look good. That's what you have to do, because we had to have the power behind the plate to be able to make you look better. But that's okay. It was a fun candid conversation with my little brother. It really was. But we can get into kitchen combos all day long. But the reality is with Pablo Lopez and the rest of these guys, and the Jeffries one was a lot of fun. And I know the PR guy was enjoying it because he sat there and looked. I said, I'll keep him short and fast, and I did it in rapid fire. But sometimes the one thing that people have to learn about interviewing is when you have a good rapport with the subject that you're dealing with, it goes quick, and you don't realize how much you can get in a short period of time. Which is why, even though our shows tend to be a little bit longer, it's a lot of the shorter pieces that we do. That it's not how much you say, it's how good you say it, and those are things that you learn as you experience more and more in the business, for sure. Now, again, my whole situation in Fort Myers is outstanding. I can't wait to look forward to working with these guys. We're going to go to one smaller topic here. Anybody else want to add to this before we go to one smaller topic? Go to Station Big. 3 more topics to go. Anybody else want to have the final word on it?
Nope, we good.
Well,
Okay. All right, so let's talk about Tim McCarver. It's time to remember Tim McCarver, who passed away on February 16th, 2025. We'll make it real short. We'll go to a station break. Tim, Eric, we know with your baseball IQ being off the charts, you remember more as a broadcaster or as a player?
Probably more a broadcaster. I mean, him and Joe Buck on Sunday, and he was actually one of the players traded in the Kurt Flood deal.
Okay, what about you, George?
Well, Tim McCarver, of course, I have to go back to the 1968 World Series. I mean, he was lining up there and taking all that heat, and those kids talk about a catcher and a pitcher with Bob Gibson. Oh my God. I mean, several, not just that one series, of course, for many years. I mean, McCarver and Gibson, what a battery mate. But all that being said, I was pretty young at that time, and I mostly remember him too as a broadcaster. I mean, I remember a little bit of his career, but of course, back then you only saw the other league, during spring training or else if you get to the World Series. But I admired him as a broadcaster. I really did. I think he was one of the finest analysts we've ever had in baseball history, as far as being a color analyst on the national broadcasts.
This is one memory I don't like to mention. I remember him for all the wrong reasons when Deion Sanders dosed water on him. Deion Sanders, to me, is the biggest idiot I've ever seen. I don't care about the work that he's doing with the Colorado Buffaloes, but for him to be that idiotic and dump water on a guy when there's electronics involved, because Tim McCarver's a little bright baseball people on the planet. Everybody knows what an excellent catcher that he was behind the plate, calling the game better. And obviously, George and I were young enough to appreciate some of what he did, but what he did on air. But he worked with what? Joe Buck, Jack Buck, unbelievable. So Tim, to me, is everything that was right about baseball, especially when it came to on-air presentation. I'm not going to get into a list of all the broadcast partners, but he did really well with the book. But Deion Sanders, to me, when he embarrassed himself in the locker room, that was an absolute annoying thing. And Deion Sanders is who he is. Don't get me wrong. He's a good coach. I'm sure if he had to rethink about what he had done to McCarver, he probably would redo it again. Maybe he would. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit. But rest in peace, Timmy. What you meant to the game. Candy, what about you? Anything you want to remember about him?
He was a 2-time World Series champion, 2-time National League All-Star, 2010 Irish American Baseball Hall of Fame inductee, 3-time Sports Emmy Award-winning Outstanding Sports Event Analyst, 2012 Ford C. Frick Award, National Baseball Hall of Fame, and in 2024 NSMA Hall of Fame. He actually had a minor league baseball stadium in Memphis was christened Tim McCarver Stadium back in 1978. It has since been replaced by a new downtown stadium named AutoZone Park in a naming rights arrangement back in 2000. I mean, how do you not remember him for all of his broadcasting? I mean, had been on the air for a long time, and he's called a lot of different games, a lot of different teams. He was on Monday Night Baseball. He did Game of the Week for NBC. He did the Winter Olympics back in '88 and in '92 with Paul Azan. He paired with Joe Buck on Fox's MLB. You know, he has called a lot of different games. He's done a lot. So he didn't work any back in 2020 due to health concerns related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then in April of 2022, he officially announced his retirement from broadcasting. But he actually had a nationally syndicated sports interview program called The Tim McCarver Show from 2000 until 2017.
Rest in peace to McCarver. With that said, we'll go to a station break.
You are watching the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see the red subscribe button, that means you have not subscribed to us yet. Please do so and share us with all your friends and family. Anybody that you think would enjoy our programming. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. And then the foreword was written by another panelist, Mr. George Alcorn. Great book, great writings, both of you. To get your copy today, go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books, or you can go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's also a link to that book. There's a link to our merchandise store. There's a plethora of great content. Some of it's written by our host, Scott, and some of it's also written by George. And there's lots of other people that have contributed. So go check out our website. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can get our audio version any place you get your podcast. Monday nights is baseball. Tuesday nights is football. Wednesday night, Sports Exchange, you never know. Thursdays on Fire Up, you never know. But Thursdays on Sports Exchange, it's hockey night on the South Florida Tribune Network. Plus, Scott does a one-on-one interview show called the Motor City Madmouth Show. You never know who he's going to be interviewing. Previously tonight, it was a Connecticut connection. What was his name again, Scott?
Dom Amore.
Dom Amore. Go check out.
Current.
Yes, go check out that interview. It's up on our YouTube channel already. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. I think back to you, Scott.
No, actually, back to Eddie Prather. So Dion is a punk. You know what, Eddie? As I told my friend Audra Arton, you are dynamite. She loved that too. She remembers good times with Jimmy Walker. But I'm not going to sit here and lose my vocal cords over it. Great stuff, Eddie. All right, let's go to the Milwaukee. In light of St. Patrick's Day, yes, I'm wearing green. Why am I wearing green? Because not only is it St. Patrick's Day, but the University of South Florida Bulls, by the way, women's team is taking on the Tennessee Volunteers in the 5-12 matchup. This is tough to see. I've always wanted to see Tennessee in the Final Four, but now I'm definitely a Bulls guy in every sense of the word. And thanks to Brian Seagrass, we get to cover this a bit. But that's how I'm wearing my green. But in light of St. Patrick's Day, how will NL Manager of the Year Pat Murphy, after all, we have to connect a St. Patrick's Day to a Pat, as in Murphy, do in his second season with the Milwaukee Brewers? You know, Eric, what do you think?
I mean, the Brewers are like one of those teams that's sneaky. Like, no matter who they lose, they somehow find ways to replace those guys. Obviously, replacing Willie Adames is not going to be easy because you lose a guy who hit like 30 bombs and hit over 100 and hit over 100 RBI. But I think their pitching staff is going to be better than people think. I think their bullpen is how they manage their bullpen is terrific, especially with the closing situation. They've gone from Josh Hader to Devin Williams to Trevor McGill. I think ultimately Devin Williams being hurt last year kind of helped Trevor McGill, and he had an argument to be an all-star last year. I think the Brewers, if they're gonna have to win the division, and I think the Cubs are slightly better, but it's really going to depend on their lineup. So right now, I'm going to say that they're going to miss the postseason this year, but they do have a nice farm system, and that it'll be interesting to see, see what players eventually become part of their future going forward.
What do you think, Candy?
let's face it, the Milwaukee Brewers last year surprised everybody and won an NL Central title. But when they do that, they always let some of their stars go. Yes, we let Willie Adames go. We traded Devin Williams. Frankie Montas is gone. Hobie Milner, Joe Ross, Colin Ray, Gary Sanchez, Wade Miley, and Bryce Wilson. And who did we add? Nestor Cortez, Caleb Durbin, Jorge Alfaro, Tyler Alexander, Manuel Marga, and Mark Canha, who's back again. But like Eric said, Milwaukee has a surprisingly way of being relevant, not getting over the hump of getting, past the National League title games, but somehow they come through. And let's face it, last year, Patrick Murphy won National League Manager of the Year. He did an awesome job considering who we all thought after Craig Counsell took his talents further south to Chicago, that they all wondered, how is Pat Murphy going to do? Is he going to be able to do, the same things? Well, the same things we were talking about. Eric mentioned pitching. We lost Hader and we still were relevant. We lost Corbin Burns and we were still relevant. Now we lost Devin Williams, but we're still relevant. Here's what I'm going to say. Because Milwaukee is such a small market team, it's really important for our players to stay healthy. If we have a healthy Christian Yelich, who's doing really good this spring from the things I've heard, as long as we stay healthy, there is a very good chance of us being very relevant and vying for that National League Central. There probably is not a lot of people that are thinking that way because, let's face it, our payroll is not high on the docket. But we play exciting ball, and Pat Murphy's got them playing hard and has them being aggressive, and I like to see that kind of baseball.
Hey, George.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a surprise. I didn't think they were going to come up with that many wins. What was it, 94 last year?
Yeah.
94 wins and winning that Central, like you guys said. But, I don't know, anytime you change that many players after a season, it makes one wonder. And I know they're small market. I know we go through a lot of this here in Detroit too. But I'm always rooting for Milwaukee ever since I met you, Candy. Hey, let the truth be known. No, seriously. I mean, I used to root for Cleveland. I really did. Because a friend of mine, Brian, that I knew from way back in the day, he was a big Indians fan, and I would root for them. Well, he's living in North Carolina now, but not to be smart about it. But I mean, then I made the association with Milwaukee. Okay. And besides that, they're in a different division, a different league than the Tigers. So the only way we'd see you guys is in the World Series.
Let's bring it on. Let's bring it on, George.
Well, I didn't say that, did I, this year? No, I don't think so. It's a roundabout way of saying, hey, they've surprised the league in the past. They've surprised baseball in the past. Let's just wait and see. Yep. That is a lot of changeover, though, from a team that was first place.
The only thing I'll say about the whole thing is this. Pat Murphy had a good first act. He really did. But the best thing the Milwaukee Brewers ever did was when they left County Stadium and they went indoors to play at Miller Park. Because that way everybody can play games inside and not have to worry about it. Period. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know what? Can I say one more thing?
Okay.
I will say that the one thing that will definitely be missed is Bob Uecker around, because he was always in the clubhouse, and he was also some of the gel that kind of sparked good things, and he could help. Not that he would manage or anything like that, but he just brought an enthusiasm to the whole locker room that will be greatly missed this year. So rest in peace, Bob.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm gonna miss Bob, especially when the Brewers clinch him. This 88-year-old man shaking champagne everywhere.
There you go.
Like, where do you get the energy?
Well, we have a question in the chat room that has Eric's name written all over it. So it comes from the Yankee chat. 13, could Ben Rice be better DH throughout the year than Stanton? Now, this is only for Eric.
No.
Okay.
No, it's too. No, they're Ben Rice. Ben Rice is young. Stanton's been doing it in a while, and that guy, it's kind of Ben and Giancarlo Stanton. When he gets hot, he gets hot. But I'd like to see like how consistent Ben Rice could be because Stanton can go on these hot streaks, but at the same time, when he disappears, very very Pete Alonso like disappearance.
No. Okay. This is a part of the show where Eric's going to really shine, but his rant comes at the end. We're going to talk about the final facts right now. The Tampa Bay Rays are targeting 2026 for the return to Tropicana Field, and they'll be out at George Steinbrenner Field in 2025. I'm not going to get into a future story that we're going to talk about the Savannah Bananas. That'll be for a later show. But let's just talk about the Tampa Bay Rays Tropicana Field, George Steinbrenner Field situation. Eric, go ahead and start off.
Well, no, the Rays were always going to go back to that because they have to fulfill that lease. Obviously, an act of God forced them out, and now having to play at Steinbrenner Field for a year because there was no way they were playing at that ballpark. But I will say this though, I think that their owner Stuart Sternberg is the biggest idiot in Florida. Here's the thing, he backed out of a deal that he wanted. It was a $1.3 billion stadium deal. I mean, yes, the cost went up, but here's the thing: how tone deaf can you be? The region was devastated by Hurricane Milton and to an extent Hurricane Helene. That's 2 hurricanes in 1 year, and all of a sudden you want the council to move to your beat? I don't think so, buddy. You know what? I'm kind of glad that there are rumors coming around saying he should sell the team. He never invested in it anyway, and besides, he doesn't even live in Florida. He lives just outside New York City. And has been open about his liking of the New York Mets. So since he hasn't been able to get this stadium deal done, and actually nobody really has, I suggest he sell the team, buy himself a luxury box in New York, and watch as a fan because he has no money to build the stadium and he has no money to invest in the team. So if he can't make it work economically, he might as well get his happy butt back to Wall Street, buy himself a box at Citi Field, and watch baseball as a fan. He's not an owner. And matter of fact, he's probably burned every bridge he's burned every bridge possible in the region. And he can't even. And right now, his club can't even sell out opening day at Steinbrenner Field. So what does that tell you about the man?
All right, Eric, is that part of your rant, or do you want to continue it later?
I'll continue it. But here's the thing:
no problem.
The Rays are about to be homeless after 2026. No way Hal Steinbrenner wants the Rays to play there for more than 1 year and have his single A team have to play in the backfield just outside the ballpark.
Right.
Hal's not going to do it. He's just doing it this year because the Rays were displaced. They're in Tampa, and Hal Steinbrenner, probably his minor league team, arguably has one of probably the nicest minor league stadium in all of Florida. But here it is. He hasn't got the stadium deal done. It's not happening. He doesn't invest in the team. That team doesn't make him money. They've been broker than broke for a very long time. They built their stadium on the wrong side of the region that no fan has decided to make the journey down the causeway to go to the stadium. And let's face it, I don't think Tampa is meant to have Major League Baseball outside of spring training. Because spring training, you get the tourists, because spring training at the end of the day is a tourist event because it draws a lot of people from all over. And also Florida itself is a transplant state. So people relocate there for the nice weather, as well as the no state income tax. But they're not but they're taking their allegiances with them. They're not just going to switch over just because they moved into the state. So my suggestion to Tampa and Rob Manfred is give up while you can, because Tampa is nothing short of a disaster to have a full-time Major League Baseball team.
Well, now my suggestion to you, Eric, is finish your rant, because that's where this is at, in an effort to keep this topic fluid, and then the rest of us will address the other thing as well. Because one thing I learned about Eric Katz, everybody, when this guy gets on a roll, he's on a roll, and stopping him is like stopping a freight train. You're just never going to stop. So I'll tell you what, Eric, this is a double segment. Not only are we talking about the fact that they're in Steinbrenner Field, but just go ahead and finish your rant in its entirety, and that way we'll be able to address it wholeheartedly. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's face it. not everywhere is meant to have Major League Baseball. There are plenty of places in this country that don't have it because they don't have whether it be the media market stadium, blah, blah, blah. But there are plenty of places in this country that are ready for it. I mean, Orlando has been making some noise about having a Major League team. I know they'll never do it with the Rays in Tampa because, because of the territory rights and things like that, because Orlando is just an hour outside of Tampa.
Right.
I think Tennessee, Nashville, they've been making noise for years to have a Major League Baseball team. And unfortunately, Major League Baseball made the mistake of going to Miami instead of going to Nashville. I think that, at the end of the day, Florida itself is only a spring training town. You're going to get the fans from all over. I mean, don't get me wrong. Spring training is fantastic. I've been fortunate enough to go the past couple of years with the exception of this year. But it's a spring training town. Most of the people who are down there during the season, like all the people who would be the would-be season ticket holders, they go back up north during the summertime, and they go to places like New York, Chicago, and what have you, but that's the problem. You don't have enough. They don't have enough people who would be willing to make that investment, and it doesn't help that the Rays Stadium is a piece of junk that at least is a little bit better than the concrete dump that was in Montreal. But let's face it, the Rays just are not. Tampa itself is just not Major League. It's only good for spring training. The Yankees have the Yankees and George Steinbrenner have had a stranglehold on that for years. George Steinbrenner has always had property there, even when the Yankees were in Fort Lauderdale and then eventually went over to Tampa. But let's face it, it's just not meant to have a full-time Major League Baseball team. That's just the way that is. There are plenty of places that are not meant to have Major League Baseball, and other places that are. I think they'd be better off in a place like Nashville or Raleigh, North Carolina, because those two places have proven with given how well their AAA team sells out every single year, whether it be the Durham Bulls or the Nashville Sounds, who do fantastic at the gate, that those two cities could definitely pull off having Major League Baseball. It's just I'm sorry, Tampa. I love vacationing there, but you just aren't Major League.
Great rant. Great topic. I'm glad you got it all off your chest, Eric. I enjoy combining segments when a guy like you is on a roll. Great stuff. All right, I'll turn over to Candy.
The Tampa Bay Rays are going to pay the Yankees $15 million so they can play in their stadium this year. The capacity is 11,000 fans. Just think of the revenue that if they were in their stadium and were drawing good crowds, how much money they would make. Think about how much money they're losing. Not only are they losing ticket revenue, they're also paying the Yankees $15 million. And it's going to cost them $56 million to get their stadium back up to par.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, Eric, you are right that down here in Florida, people don't vacation down here in the months of May, June, July. All of us that live down here love that time of year because the traffic is so much easier as opposed to the snowbirds that come down here from November, December, January, February, March, and April. They're starting to leave in April. And we all love it because we get our cities back. We get our roads back. We don't have to wait as long at a restaurant for a table because there's less people down here. But less people also means during the baseball season, there's less people to draw the crowds from. Because let's face it, most people aren't going to come down here on vacation in the month of July, month of August. They love being up in their towns because the weather is better up there than coming down to what they think is so hot down here in Florida. And yes, it gets warm. Yeah. And yes, in order to have a stadium down here, you would have to have a roof. So it's not as it's a more expensive expenditure if you're going to build a new stadium. Tampa, I think, does have enough people that they could. I think they just can't find the right place to put it. And that's the problem with when the Marlins built their stadium. It's in the wrong location. You put it in a better location and you would draw better. Nobody wants to drive down to Little Havana and try and find a parking spot. If you're lucky, you get in the garage, but then you're paying extra. Otherwise, you're parked out on the street and you're like wondering if you're going to come back to a car or hubcap's gone or whatnot. So do I think Tampa could support it? Yes, because I think they have shown they have better crowds than the Miami. They have better teams than Miami. But if they can't get the stadium right and build it in the right spot, then no. And then they're going to be forced to move it. Are there other towns that maybe would support it better? A summertime, yes, probably. But the fact of the matter is it's in Tampa right now. It's harder to move than it is to stay. So the question will be, will they sell and get a new owner, and will the new owner move it, or will the new owner keep it in Tampa?
Hey, George, what do you think?
Well, I haven't really delved into this subject too much. So what was his main reason for canceling out of this new stadium agreement he was going for?
Because the costs have gone up because of the expenditures. When they first started the process, costs weren't as high, and he's not willing to put the extra money in.
Well, I'm sorry. The whole economy has been turned inside out in the last dozen years, or less than that even. But I don't know what's going to happen. I agree with you guys, though. I don't think the Tampa Bay, yes, that area deserves a team. I agree, better than Miami does, or will support a team better than Miami. I do not think there should be two teams in Florida at all. I really don't. And unfortunately, they struck out because Orlando would have been the best area probably if there was just going to be one. But that's beside the point right now. You got two franchises down there that really shouldn't be down there. Very good observation, a very good learning session for George to hear this. What you were talking, Candy, about the trends of the people and the hot weather and that whole ancillary effect of, baseball fans going back up north or going back home and then not having enough fans as far as your base goes. But all I can say is they got to get this mess straightened out soon. Trust me, it's not easy getting an owner to sell his team. It's not. I've lived through it in Detroit. Scott knows that. People wanted William Clay Ford out of the picture for the Detroit Lions for decades and never got it.
Well, I'll say this. I'm glad I'm going last on this because you see this shirt based in Tampa. I'm a proud University of South Florida Bull alumnus. George will tell you right now, I always thought in my mind that stadium should have been built adjacent to Tampa Stadium. They had a sign at it many years ago that this would be the new home of Tampa baseball, and they didn't do it. And when St. Pete was adamant about having that stadium, Tampa said, you know what? You can have it. But here's the biggest kicker out of all of this. My colleague in Tampa, Tom Corrin, retired from NBC in Tampa, told me Hillsborough County will not bail them out to fix this problem. That doesn't mean the team won't be in Hillsborough County, but they won't bail them out as a backup plan. But that said, I'll add this other piece of the puzzle. Should the Rays prove that they can draw decent crowds at George Steinbrenner Field, even 10, 11,000, because they weren't drawing well at the Trop to begin with, this might cultivate a little interest if there's a little bit of the fan interest with a rowdy stadium could be all right to just generate a degree of enthusiasm. It'll all come down to what Major League Baseball says, what owner that they will approve. And I think the owner that steps up that goes to Hillsborough County might get the edge because Rob Manfred truly does not want a team in St. Petersburg. It's evident. And I'll tell you another thing. I'm glad that Sternberg backed out of that deal because why would you even replace Tropicana Field with a stadium right next to a place which has been dormant for a long time and an area that doesn't draw. So I'm not really going to totally jump on Stuart Sternberg. I think he made the right move getting out of that deal because that was an awful location. The location in Tampa, to me, and a Tampa owner is what will save Major League Baseball in the Tampa area. Then they messed it up many years ago when that stadium should have been built next to Tampa Stadium. I've always been a firm believer. Tampa's a great sports town. It really is. I don't think well, hold on, Eric. Let me finish, okay? Orlando, to me, could support Major League Baseball. It's centrally located. And Eric pointed out, it's only an hour away. But Orlando's not getting the team. I really don't think they are. So I think the best thing that could happen is Major League Baseball has Sternberg sell a team to a Tampa ownership group and not St. Petersburg. I'm not on Stuart Sternberg in terms of not. Why would I want cost overruns in an area at a location that, to me, I think is dormant to begin with, that failed for many years? How can you not, with a winning team, be able to sell out the place at that location in the playoffs? I'd like somebody to come out here, whether it's in the chat room or later on YouTube, and explain to me why. Because the Rays certainly know how to develop talent and they know how to put teams in the postseason, but they couldn't sell out the building. Why do you think they had to take a stadium that was like 35,000 and reduce it to 25,000? Listen, I've seen a few games there, and it's, to me, the ballpark is horrible. I don't like the way the roof is horizontal with all the what do you call them, the little knickknacks that you have out there where you play out, the ball bangs up. It doesn't matter. That stadium that was hammered by Hurricane Ali, it was too bad it didn't hold up, but the area, I view it as a blessing in disguise because it woke up the area that if it took an act of nature to make sense of this situation, then now there's a sense of urgency that has to take over. But Tampa, to me, is the obvious location, and I hope if cooler heads prevail that it lands next to Raymond James Stadium over there. And I know that there's other suitable locations of other malls that aren't doing anything that you can easily go into. My buddy Leo Haggerty, who I'll see in a few weeks at the NCAA Women's Final Four, and I will have more details. But Tom Corn summed it up, and I shared it to Candy and a bunch of other people. And Eric, if I get a chance, I'll share it to you as well. You can. I just want to make sure I was on a roll, Eric, that since I'm obviously a Tampa guy and you're an aspiring Tampa guy, then that's what it is. Tampa, to me, is the right place to put Major League Baseball. If you don't believe me, the Tampa Bay Bucks do well there, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why not the Rays? Because obviously the Lightning and the Buccaneers have won championships. All right, Eric, you can take over.
Well, the Lightning in particular have especially in recent years, have been very successful at Amalia Arena, which is just off the Hillsborough River, and a very lovely location where you can actually get off a boat and actually go to a game. Right. Here's the thing, though. Orlando would be great for it because, number one, they would get crowds no matter what. You get people from all over with Disney World passes and also Universal Studios. I knew people in Illinois when I was growing up who had Disney World passes. They don't even live in Florida. It would be perfect. The Magic do quite well there. They always have, even post Kobe and post Shaq and Penny. They've always done well there, even in recent years where they've been horrible. They people still go to those games. You would get crowds. I promise you. There are thousands of people who visit Disney World each year. There are many people that visit Universal each year and spend all that money on a fast pass for them to get on the rides a little faster. But I promise you, with the money spending less, they would spend significantly less money going to a baseball game than they ever would going to Disney World or Universal. But here's the thing. Tampa is not proving themselves right now. They can't even sell out opening day at that 11K stadium. So what does that tell you? Rob Manfred needs to give up on his Tampa dream. I like vacationing in Tampa, but let's face it, it's a spring training town that the Yankees have owned for years. And also you get plenty of people from all over because Florida at the end of the day is a transplant state who just because they moved there doesn't mean they're adopting those teams. But I promise you take them out of Tampa and put them in a place like Nashville, as well as possibly Orlando, the crowds will come. It won't happen in St. Pete. I don't think it'll happen in Tampa, even if they were to build on the former site of Tampa Stadium, which obviously the Bucks moved next door and went to Raymond James Stadium where they are now. But I promise you, it would work in anywhere but Tampa Bay. I can guarantee you that right now.
Well, Eric, you like to argue with somebody. Now you're going to get one with me, okay?
Good. Bring it on.
Because after all, you look for this stuff, and now you got one, okay, with me. Number one, you put a guy out. I'll take 10,000 people in Tampa all day long. Then I will take 15 or 20,000 in St. Petersburg all day long. I know what Tampa fans are all about, especially over there. So I don't care what you say. Listen, Nashville is inevitable. We know about the South. Yeah. We know about the Raleigh area. Those are great potential expansion places. And I'll even take it a step further. If we want to turn it into an expansion topic, I wouldn't rule out Portland either, because I've heard and Salt Lake City, if they really want to go deeper into that, it depends on who's going to go out there and come up with a stadium deal. But don't sit here and tell me about Tampa not being relevant. I know it is, because first of all, they have a history of being able to support them. If you put 10,000 people in that stadium, I'll take it all day long. At least it's loud. And St. Petersburg, to me, would be like going to a funeral. And I'll tell you, it's really somber in that particular point. So, and the word I was looking for, by the way, was catwalk. Thank you very much, Eric, for taking over so I could come up with catwalk. Well, hold on. Okay, now you wanted to turn this show without Trent Clark in an argument. You're looking for a guy to argue with, and now you got me to do it. Because after all, I'm the guy from the Tampa area. Well, part of the way. Anyway, a lot of years, a lot of time invested. So I disagree with you. So now I will give you this much, though, Eric. It is a lot cheaper to go to a baseball game than it would be Universal Studios and Disney World. All right, Candy, you want to interject here? Because I'm on a roll now. Go ahead, Candy.
The Atlanta Braves did play in Orlando. And the problem with Orlando was Disney controlled their prices. They charged up to $62 for admission for a spring training game in Orlando. But, Eric, I just want to refresh people's memory, and because most people might not know this, but the Savannah Bananas sold out Raymond James Stadium, 65,000 people to see that baseball game, as opposed to opening day right now for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, and
65,000.
We'll address that at a later date. But yes, it just shows you what Tampa can do in a stadium not built for baseball. So yeah, that's true, Candy. But that's something we'll probably talk about when Trent Clark comes back on next week. But I'm glad you made reference. So Eric, I know where you're coming from. I'll go back to what I said before. It is cheaper to watch baseball than it is going to Universal Studios. And I will tell you this: not only is it cheaper to go there and Disney, I ought to know, because Candy and I went with my sister-in-law Denise and my brother-in-law Tracy. Couldn't believe how much. The last time I went to Disney World, and I mean Disney World, was back in 1986 when I graduated from USF, and I couldn't believe what we were paying. Really? Seriously? Really? You had to get those in there tonight. So without a doubt. So we appreciate Henry Waltham with his little link here in the show. No problem. Appreciate you doing that. But the reality is, Eric, I agree with you 99 out of 100 times. This is one time, especially if you're looking to get into Tampa market. You don't want to piss those people off anyways by burning your bridge. I know you like to go out there and talk about minor league baseball, and you can do it. And I'll make sure, Eric, if you ever get to Tampa, I will line you up all the way to make sure you can succeed there, because I know a lot of people there. But baseball will work in Tampa. Put it in a good location. I know it will. I really do know in my mind it will. Period. Now, if you want to argue with me some more, that's okay.
Now, my turn. Here's the
turn.
thing.
Look at this. It's turning into a boxing match tonight.
Here's the thing. They're having a hard time selling out opening day at 11,000 at 11,000 capacity Steinbrenner Field. If Tampa wants to prove me wrong, they'd all be lining up like a bunch of droves to a dead body to go to a game. I promise you it will not work. Tampa has always been about its hockey, because hockey I think was the first sport football was the first sport in Tampa. Plus Florida has a very heavy presence with high school football, especially when the University of Miami was in its heyday, you grabbing kids left and right in what Howard Schnellenberger called the state of Miami, called the state of Miami, and he built a fence around the state. I assure you, if they go to Orlando, they will be successful. You get tourists year round. People go down there to do it. And I promise you, whoever owns the team in Orlando is going to tell Disney to buzz off because they know how much of a pain Disney will be. And has always been a pain, especially in recent years with ESPN. I promise you, you go to Orlando, there are many thousands of people that go down there and go to Disney World. And they also go to Universal. But if they're seeing a baseball game, I can promise you at least a good portion of that crowd is thinking baseball, especially when most of the country has kind of tuned out Disney in recent years. But I promise you, if they stay in Tampa, it will be a mistake, especially under this current ownership who has burned every bridge in sight. He already tried with Hillsborough, especially when they were going to do.
He's not going to be the owner, Eric. Seriously, really, seriously. Wait a minute. Wait. Here's a guy that's telling me right now, okay, that place will be good. But meanwhile, you're bashing the A's to go to Las Vegas. And here you are. Well, wait. No, Eric, okay. Now you open up a new can of worms, and I'm not done now. Now you got me going. There goes another night's sleep that I don't get any in the first place. So, nobody cares. Stuart Sternberg ain't going to own that team much longer. They'll get a new owner. Here's what here. You want to talk about this? Charlotte wasn't going to build George Shedd Stadium out in Charlotte. But when they got new ownership, they didn't have a problem. So how the heck can you sit here and tell me on this show tonight, wherever you're at, okay, yeah, and Eddie Prather, I am fired up now because my little pupil here is getting me this way. But don't sit here and give me that but. I don't even care what you're saying this time, man. Oh, Trent, you're missing a battle, but hope you're doing good in Colorado. You're the one who's sitting there poking fun at Las Vegas because the A's are there aren't going to draw any. Meanwhile, it's okay for all these people to go out there and support the Tampa Bay or Orlando Rays, whatever the heck you want to call them. Come on, Eric. Get on the same page, brother, son, grandson, whatever you want to call it. I don't even care. Stuart Sternberg couldn't get funded out in Jamaica, let alone out in Tampa. It ain't going to happen. There's no way. They got to get a new owner. So Charlotte didn't want to deal with George Shedd. They sold it. And they built a new stadium in downtown. I hear it's great. So you're right, Eric. Stuart Sternberg wouldn't get no money out of Hillsborough County. Tom Cord even said that. And I'll introduce you to him, too. You'll like the people I'm going to introduce you to Tampa. But come on, Eric. You got to do better than that if you're with me. You can sit there and beat up on Mark Mancini all day long. And you and Mark Mancini's like watching Peter McNeely and Mike Tyson. You'll crush him all day long, and I'll put my money on you. And I don't bet a lot. So, but the bottom line is you're not going to battle with me, knowing I've lived there, number one. I know the lay of the land. But you're right. There's no way that Stuart Sternberg's going to get finance in Hillsborough County. I'm going to give you that much. I will, because you're 100% right. You can't argue with somebody that's right, let alone bright. So we're going to call you right and bright. But not in this argument, you're not going to win. You can put your hand up and let me finish.
You didn't let me finish.
Well, I know, but I'm going to let you finish here because you got me going. And that's okay. You got me going. You were looking for an argument. You followed with me. I'm giving it to you. And I hope we don't lose any people here because Eric and I having a good old time. I'm telling you.
I promise.
Yeah, you sound like a politician now.
It will. Tampa has already proven after their honeymoon period, and this was even before Stuart Sternberger with Vince Naimoli, who arguably was probably a bigger penguin than Stuart Sternberg. Tampa has proven time and time again that baseball does not interest them outside of spring training when all the tourists are in town to have fun. They have shown this. They're already having a hard time selling out Steinbrenner Field.
I don't want to even hear that. Let me ask you a question, Eric.
Let me finish.
No, wait. Let me ask you a question. Well, no. Now, this is interesting. Can I ask you a question? I want to know if I'm still alive or dead. What's today's date, Eric?
Today's it's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, forget St. Patrick's Day. That changes every year, just like the Jewish holidays change every year.
17th.
So, yeah, 3/17/2025. When you're going to sell me by opening day that it isn't sold out, you got another different argument here. Well, right now, 3/17/20. Wait a minute. It's 3/17/2025. I hope you're okay, George, because now it's getting interesting. and at least you won't lose your voice, even though I'm probably bound to lose mine later with throat surgery on the way later in the year. 317-25. You're going to sit here and tell me after the fact they didn't sold it, but don't give me the business before the fact. I'm not buying that one. No way.
I will say I told you so when it happens.
Well, then do it. And you know what I'll do? When you tell me I told you so, I'll go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid and I'll admit I'm wrong. But I'm not admitting on this show on 317-2025 that your comments have any relevance until it's over, not before it started.
Let's see where they rank at the end of the year in terms of attendance. When you would,
We don't care what they're going to rank. They're going to rank near the bottom because they're an 11,000 seat stadium. Listen, dude, I know my math is bad, and I'll never be afraid to admit it. My father-in-law Fred Ebling would probably have failed me in math anyways, and I know he would have, but he never got that opportunity because I got his daughter first.
It worked out.
Yeah, I'd say it worked out. So don't give me this business about they haven't sold out now. Because right now you're not Savannah Banana. You're looking like Oopsie
That's not
the
even
Clown.
baseball. That's not even baseball. That is the.
I don't care what it is. No, you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is.
Globetrotters.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to tell you, but you beat me to that one. I know the Harlem Globetrotters. And where they play.
That is one game compared to a span of 80 to 82 games a year. The Savannah Bananas are very world renowned. They are like the circus. Once they go into town, you better catch them while they're there, and they have a wait list for tickets. Otherwise, you won't be seeing them. There's a difference between the Savannah Bananas and a full-time Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, well, no kidding. Why the hell do you think they didn't go out there and have to
carry them?
Don't even go there, because if you're going to do that, they didn't have to put a big wall there like they did at the LA Coliseum years ago, where I have to change it. All they do is bunt and look like clowns out there. What you saw on the field there was like the Washington Generals is what you saw. That's all you saw was the Washington Generals 11th inning. Big stinking deal. The only winners were there with the Bananas and the people over in Tampa that made a boatload of money on that one. So I know what they were.
And the
Let me tell you, many years ago, hold on, okay? George and I are the only ones on this panel that know about Olympia Stadium. And the only time I ever saw a basketball game at Olympia Stadium was up when my dad, my mom, and my brother and I went to the Harlem Globetrotters at Olympia Stadium. So I know what the Savannah Bananas are. I also remember Oopsie the Clown, Bozo the Clown, and all that business. I ain't going there, brother. I love this kid. I'm telling you, this guy's got more potential than anybody I've ever seen. He's brash and he's bright. I can't compliment him more than that. But every now and then you have a kid here, and you have to say, my son, okay, you know, you can get the best sunset on the planet, but when the sunset goes down, you got darkness. And right now, with your prediction, you got darkness as far as I'm concerned, until anybody can sit here and go from there. Now, I know George Eichhorn, we're approaching his bedtime.
I'm right.
Oh, I know George Eichhorn has his bedtime any moment here, and he can't stay on much longer. I realize that his sleep situation is far better than mine. So, George, I'm going to ask you to do this before we wrap up this show, and I'm glad we brought it up. Okay, so if you had to take one side or the other, this isn't Henry Jones and Scott Morganroth, and we won't even get into that till another time. But if you had to look at Eric and I as a nutshell, which way do you think you're going on this one?
I'm going with you, Scott. I'm going with you. There's potential for Tampa as a baseball town, and all the other reasons that you mentioned. I'm going to lean in your direction.
Well, I'll go ahead, Candy.
One last thing. Yes, Eric, you talk about that the Rays have not sold out opening day. The cheapest seat is $132 all the way up to $390.
Wow.
And may I remind you, you are sitting outside. It is not covered at all. So depending on what time of day that game is at a 4:10, you are sitting in the sun all that time. So just remember, you're not guaranteed a game because it could be rained out. There's no covering. You're sitting out in the sun and the heat. So that might play a factor in their attendance this year.
I'll say.
In fairness to them.
Well, then you know what? I rest my case because George Eichhorn wants to rest.
I will say this. I've sat out on those boiling hot days at Wrigley Field and the
Not
cold
for that
and the
kind of
cold
money.
weather. Oh,
Not for that kind of money.
Oh, believe me.
Not in the tropics, you haven't.
I've been down in Florida in the summertime.
I know you have, but not during the summer paying three bills for the best ticket. Seriously, really? I would go there. And Brian Pettit says Savannah Bananas will be at Clemson Memorial Stadium on April 26th. Sold out. There you go. So now they're going to football. So I rest my case. George Reichhorn's going to have to rest. And you know what, Eric? I'll say one thing. You were looking for an argument, and you got one from me. And we got a lot of people having fun with this whole thing. And even Pettit comes up with Savannah Bananas and Memorial Stadium at Clemson. Good stuff, though. You know what, Eric? Here's what I can say about you. I love you, my son. I really do. And this will be continued when we do this thing with Brent. When we do it with Trent Clark, we talk about Savannah Bananas and the Rays. But this is just a sample size of what everybody has to look forward to. That said, that does conclude this. Go ahead, Eric.
All I got to say is if you're watching, Trent, you're mine, dog. You're mine.
Okay, well, you're yours. But you know what, Trent? Here's the thing. From a fellow author here, at least you can learn a little game notes about what you saw tonight. You missed a classic here tonight. You missed a Donnybrook tonight. This isn't UFC. This is boxing 101.
He missed the epic. He missed the epic.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to the combat sports business. But meanwhile, I want to thank Candy Eveling and George Eichhorn for being the two best spectators at ringside to watch Eric and I go at it. I know Eric was priming to find somebody to argue with, but when you start talking sports in the Tampa Bay area for a guy that wants to live there, then you got a different situation. So that does conclude this edition of 108 Pitches Baseball Talk. But we're not done, because some people out there are going to let people know they get hold of us. And Eric Katz, you can lead off, my friend. And I love this guy. I really do. I just had to set him straight about the sports climate in Tampa. Good stuff, Eric.
You can follow me on my X and Twitter account at Sports Team News, and follow me on my blog at bellyoffsports.com. And if you think I hate your team, yes, I do hate your team.
There you go. So now you can argue with that. I've already extended mine to the next episode with Trent. You're next. At least since you were out of here tonight, I got a shot at Eric tonight. All right, George, go ahead, my friend.
Okay, you can follow me at the South Florida Tribune under the contributing writers section. And at the end of that column, there's always a link to my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And boy, oh boy, these two went at it, just like two other guys that I know that went at it a lot in Detroit named Ron Cameron and Bob Page. But that's a different story for a different day, as Scott would like to say. You could follow me at Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn as well with my name, and also on Twitter with Sand the G Sports 99. And hey, great show tonight, guys. 108 stitches. Georgie's ready for bedtime.
Well, George will be going to bed after we wrap this bad boy up.
Bedtime with Bonzo.
Another minute or two. That's about it. Candy, you can take it from there. I think I used a lot of vocal cord action, and Eric Catlett loved every second of it. Go ahead, Candy. Take us through the way.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword is written by George Eichhorn. Two great writers, one great book. Gotta get it. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a link to our merchandise store and a plethora of great content. Couple good photos too, if I do say so myself. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, it means you haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please do so and share us with all your friends and family, anyone that you would think would enjoy a boxing match, or in other words, a baseball broadcast like tonight. Tomorrow night is football, Wednesday night and Thursday night. You just never know what we're going to be talking about. But we do talk hockey on Thursday nights, and Scott does an awesome job on his one-on-one interviews on the Motor City Madmouth show, so go check it out. Again, if you'd like to be a guest, or if you have show or topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to sponsor a show or advertise, you can call Scott 954-304-4941.
And also, just so you know, tomorrow, Candy will be on her show, give him a little heads up before George goes to bed, because it's a great show with you, Jennifer, Carrie, and Megan. Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, it's the Chicks podcast. It's 3 chicks, or it's Chicks and Salsa, and probably will be Chicks and Salsa because I believe it's going to be all 4 of us tomorrow night. And we are going to do a preview of the women's NC2A bracket. We're each going to take one of the sides, one of the locations, one of the sides of the bracket, and we're going to dice it down and dissect it and give you the brackets that we think. So that's going to be on tomorrow night's episode of the Chicks podcast.
So in addition to our shows this week, also there'll be a lot more Minnesota Twins material that hits our YouTube channel as well. So I hope you got a taste of it tonight with Pablo. A lot of other good stuff that we mentioned a little bit earlier ourselves. So on behalf of Candy Blank, George Icorn, and Eric Katz, my name is Scott Morgan. We're out the Motor City Madmouth, mellowing a little bit now. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Look forward to certainly get back on here. Hope you enjoyed the program this week, and hope you enjoyed the boxing match that what turned out to be after watching the baseball show. Well, make sure you get your biggest bang for your buck. That's it. Good night, everybody. See you next week. Bye now.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.